Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the show. You know, over time, many artists, writers, deep thinkers, and philosophers have looked to nature for inspiration. And why not? I mean, how can anyone resist the beauty and splendor of the natural world around us? When it comes to humans coexisting with the outside, people tend to think that indoors and outdoors are mutually exclusive. As you can see, I'm a big fan of bringing the outdoors in and the indoors out. So in today's show, what we're going to focus on is making some of those outdoor spaces a little more cozy. I don't know about for you, but for me, I love to see how other people employ certain elements in their garden, like water. To me, water's a real important feature in a garden. It brings movement, the sound, which is so serene, and it reflects the sky. So there's lots of reasons to have water in your garden. We're visiting one of my favorite gardens in Dallas, Texas, and there's several water features I want to show you. We'll start with this one in the front. Just take a look at it. It's a simple, long, rectilinear fountain with a little boy riding a dolphin, the water spraying into it. The sound of the water, well, it's just heavenly. What I like about this fountain is its placement. It's in the front garden, so when guests arrive, they can see it and hear it. If you take a walk along the north side of the house, you soon come upon a beautiful classical fountain, self-contained, and the source is a beautiful lead dolphin spilling into a lead basin that then pours into the larger fountain basin below. And what's not to love about this elegant swimming pool, which wraps around an upper terrace? What I like about this is that the bottom is painted gray, but with water in it, it takes on a beautiful blue color. The scale of this pool, its elegant shape, and its color make it very inviting. The kind of pool you want to jump in on a hot summer day. Now, while this might be the largest pool here, there's still some other surprises, like a wonderful little fountain that's just tucked into the side of the wall. It's the tiniest fountain here, but with loads of personality. You hardly notice it as it's tucked around the beautiful holly fern and surrounded by the fig ivy clinging to the stone. Now, I've saved the grandest water feature for last, and it's all natural. Take a look at this creek that runs across the back of the property. This is Hackberry Creek, which is a tributary off of Turtle Creek. Runs all year long, and the garden extends beyond the creek on the other side. You can see there are little paths that you can follow, and you cross a bridge to see it. And today, you can see a big bed of Minton tulips stretching for the light. Gorgeous. And what better way to enjoy the creek than on a boat, floating on the water? Don't you love this little boathouse? It's original to the property. It was built in 1916, the perfect addition. So when you're thinking about your garden, whether it's large or small, make sure you add some form of water. You'll be glad you did. Okay, here we go. Do you love roses? Well, I certainly do. In fact, I'm one of those guys that believes there's a place for a rose just about in every garden. There may be a few exceptions to that, but you know, there is nothing more satisfying to see lots of beautiful rose blooms and have that amazing fragrance. So to help amplify that message, I want you to hear from my buddy Chris Van Cleve. He's sometimes known as the redneck rosarian. That guy knows his roses.
Wow. I'll tell you, every time I come to Moss Mountain Farm, it just makes me smile. To be able to get over that hill and down in this rose garden is an incredible thing. You know, all rose gardens begin with good soil. And you see here, you can just dig into the dirt. And it makes all the difference in the world when you're planting a rose garden to have that good, organic, rich soil. to start with. Wow, as you can see, the roses planted here along this wall are really maturing, and they're beginning to spill over the wall. Gives a beautiful effect in the garden. You know, so many homes today are planted with these types of rock walls, and these roses that spill over make a very striking impression in the garden. It's been interesting to see this garden mature over the last 3 years. You see here these shrub roses and the climbers have really taken their place in the garden. And the roses mixed with the coleus and the petunias and the allium here really bring this garden together. You know, year 3 in the garden with climbers, you really see them take off. And I just love how these have almost reached the top of this entry gate. Such a wonderful fragrance too. So many times in the summer months with climbers, they'll throw out these really long canes. You know, you want to trim and shape them in the way that you want them to grow as they throw out these canes to give you the most pleasing effect in your garden. You know, it's really been awesome to see the garden here at Moss Mountain Farm mature. Every rose has a story to tell, and the rose garden here at Moss Mountain Farm definitely tells a wonderful story.
I love growing tomatoes, and if you've ever grown them, you know that there's really not a one-size-fits-all approach to being successful in the vegetable garden with these guys. But there are a few things that are helpful to know. Growing on the vertical seems to be one of the most efficient ways to conserve space while giving your plants the support they need. Now, here are 3 approaches that I'm taking in my vegetable garden this year. The first method is what I call the stakes and strings method. So what I've done is created this grid using a simple stake and a couple of horizontal bars to create more of a permanent structure. Then I use this string as a temporary support. What I'm doing is I'm just going up and down the full length of this space around the tomato, and I'm creating, in effect, sort of a net for it to grow in. And down, and what I'm using here is just a jute twine. And as the tomato grows, I can connect this with more twine to these vertical strings. What you want to do is make sure they're good and tight before you tie them off. Then all you have to do is make sure that the leaves and stems are sort of directed up through this grid of twine that we've created. And the timing is just about right for this one because it already has lots of little tomatoes on it and the plants are getting a little top heavy. Now let me show you another way that you can support tomatoes. A time-honored way of supporting tomatoes is using these tomato cages. They're homemade. I made them out of concrete reinforcing wire. It's the sort of thing that you can buy by the roll at a builder supply company. What I like about this model is you can make these cylinder cages and you can use them year after year. You'll notice that the openings are large enough that one can easily get their hand in there and pick that beautiful fruit or check for pests. Now another idea I want to share with you is using livestock panels, getting creative with it. So these livestock panels were bent over to create this arch. Now along the side I have a raised bed and I've planted all kinds of things that will grow up on it. This is the ultimate sort of vertical garden. So I have gourds here, but look at the tomatoes. What we'll do here is as the tomatoes continue to grow, we'll just tie them or weave them in and out of this mesh and they'll stay supported. This is perfect for indeterminate types of tomatoes, those that will grow to an indeterminate length. Remember, a tomato is a vine, and so these will grow up and over, and you'll have lots of fruit hanging here to pick. Perfect for tomatoes like those sweet 100s or those tiny little yellow pear tomatoes that produce so abundantly. Hope these ideas are helpful to you. Give them a try. Yeah, look at you go. How you get around your garden is almost as important as what's planted there. Luckily, there are many different ways to make a path. You know, you don't have to have a lot of space to experience abundance in your garden. By following just a few tips and tricks, you can have your garden overflowing with the flowers that you love the most. Use the right kind of organic fertilizer for what you're planting. Use the container variety for containers, the bulb food for bulbs, vegetables for your veggies, and so on. If in doubt, the all-purpose works on everything as well. I suggest that you plant in large numbers and groups where you concentrate your plants to get full visual effect. This also allows you to go out and cut a few flowers without taking away from the overall impact. The other thing to think about is to stagger your blooms to extend the display and maximize your planting area. So fill your space, no matter the size, with beautiful foliage and blooms. Feed them and fill your heart and garden with color. If you know me, you know I love nature, and I'm all about connecting with nature in every possible way, frequently. I love this idea of, well, blurring the lines between inside and out. It's a garden home principle. My friend Robin Horton from Urban Gardens feels the same way. So let's check out the sleeping porch.
I love this sleeping porch. I love the idea that it's a perfect blend of indoor and outdoor. It's set up almost like an indoor room, but it's looking out over the whole farm and the vistas. I mean, it's just stunning. And in the old days, people really did sleep on the porch. I'm sure that's where this comes from. It's covered, so it's protected. So you have a good opportunity here for bringing indoor furniture outside. You have furniture like this hutch. You have the table. You have these beds. People could actually sleep out here. I also like the idea of bringing the spa or bathing area outside, and there's a bathtub here, a beautiful antique bathtub, and it just is a beautiful thing to look at. But it speaks to the whole story of experiencing and living indoors and outdoors at the same time. And you can experience this room at different times of the day. So it's going to be a different room in the evening at sundown as it is early in the morning. And it's also wonderful for entertaining. I could see, having not just breakfast out here, but cocktails. And if you get tired, you could take a little nap or take a bath. I think what it all comes down to is figure out how you want to live in a certain space, whether it's a tiny room or a little patio or a porch. I think everything comes down to an experience. We're looking to experience things and to create experiences for ourselves and for other people, and Alan does a good job of that. It's a fusion of things. All of it's related.
Marilyn, the garden looks so beautiful today.
Thank you, thank you. We need a little rain.
Well, it's you can't tell it by all the azaleas in bloom. This is very much a spring garden, isn't it?
It is a spring garden. The azaleas are so pretty this year.
When did you and Bob decide to make this a park?
Just the people started coming here and having their pictures made.
Did they realize it was your front yard that they were standing in front of?
Not really, not really. I think that everybody thought it was a city park.
Oh, I see.
And and then one day the sign shows up with the name. And
so did you all decide just to put the park, Bogle Park here, or did the city put it here?
I don't know who put it. I think it was Christmas morning that it was there.
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
How marvelous. How did you decide what to plant first?
David, my son, was just starting his business, Garden City. Some people brought it back. They said that this looks like it's dying. They would bring back and said, I don't like the shape of this flower.
Oh.
And these are the original azaleas that he sold.
The rejects.
The rejects, yes.
Well, it's inspiring what you and Bob have done for the community. And thank you for inspiring all of us.
Well, you're quite welcome. Enjoy having you come up here and see what we're doing.
I love it. Jay, I love how creative you are with using flowers and this idea of bringing the garden inside in fun ways is all about this garden home concept of blurring the lines between inside and out.
I love fun with flowers.
Yeah, well,
and I love having them inside.
You're so good with it. You know, this idea of creating garlands and then building a floral theme around them is really popular. And I'd love for you to just sort of walk us through some of the techniques that you use to create these beautiful garlands.
So the garland needs some stability on the inside, and that's what our little piece of jute serves
Right.
as.
So
It's
you
not going to
start
come
with
apart.
that, yeah.
And so we just start at one end, and we
Yep.
have that jute inside there.
Yep, there it is. You can see it right here.
And then we're wrapping the foliage around the jute.
Right. And so here you're using just a mixture of evergreens. There's aspidistra, pittosporum, leatherleaf, sort of the traditional sort of floral things that one might get at a florist. And then what you do is then you begin to add whatever flowers you like.
Right, and so these could be flowers out of the garden. Now this obviously a little more elegant with our gerandos and our garden roses and our spray roses would be suitable for a wedding or a garden party that we were
Look
going to
at
have.
that. Yeah. You've got a nice start with this one. And look how long, this is what, 6 feet long, maybe
Correct.
8?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that, just beautiful. And I like the fact that you've integrated some of the curly willow in there too. It's really just a matter of just using your imagination and going wild with it.
Absolutely, and if you make the garland first, then you can either place these or they can be glued in.
Right.
If you're going to be, if you're going to use them outside on a picnic table or something, and you want it to be wind resistant, then you would glue those guys in. And I use rubber cement. That's a perfect way to do that.
And and tubed flowers too. I mean, if you want to have tubes, the garland with this foliage really hides the tube.
Absolutely, and if you need something like a hydrangea that has a big water supply,
Yeah.
sometimes I'll lay this on the table and just put a little block of the flower foam.
Right.
And then just place that into the flower
so you-
foam. So I've got the flower
So
foam
you would
as
get
an
your
accent.
shape down the table, and then you would come in and then work from there.
Yeah, so then just tuck those little pieces of flower foam underneath there.
Right. Now, what about the idea of using these fresh flowers, let's say outdoors?
Okay.
Because, when the sun hits a cut flower, it's not always very good.
Right.
The results can be
So we might want to do
disappointing.
something more rustic. And that's where it could get interesting with different types of foliages that you have from the art, Elaeagnus,
Yeah.
to give it that beautiful, that brown tone and
Right,
silver
so we
tone.
use Elaeagnus here at the farm because it's so hardy.
Right.
And tough, and it doesn't wilt.
And big sweeping pieces of it too. You could use those to really extend your
Those
garland.
long stems,
Yeah.
right. And then here we gathered this morning some of this vitex, so the seed pods of the vitex.
That's so beautiful and so textural. Now, combining those together and just adding it into it, and of course now you have blooming ones
And then
as
you've
well.
got, there's still some in bloom, and then one could integrate maybe herbs in this.
Oh, because then it would be aromatic.
I made a garland several years ago where I used a lot of herbs in it, and the fragrance was fantastic. Rosemary, some oregano.
And as you're wrapping with that wire, you're releasing that fragrance.
Yeah, and the woody herbs seem to work better.
Okay.
Basil's more herbaceous and it tends to wilt, but
Right.
rosemary won't. It's tough.
Perfect.
Yeah. And you're thinking about maybe some roses in there too.
I love these roses.
kind of
because
going sort of a blue lavender theme here.
Wouldn't that be pretty?
So even if you didn't have roses blooming in your garden, you could pick some of them up at the grocery store or your florist and then integrate those into it.
Sure. Anything goes when it comes to garlands.
Well, and then what you did is you just took this floral wire. I want to go back to the technique for just a minute,
Absolutely.
because there's our jute, which is sort of our common thread, quite literally, and then you've bundled along and you just continue to wrap,
And adding.
adding one, and then so we're adding a little Elaeagnus, and you just keep bringing this around and adding a little more here. Yep.
And it's just simply continuing to wrap and keeping that jute on the backside.
And you're kind of keeping the ratio of the same kinds of things along the way. So, you get a little of this and a little of this and a little of this, and there's kind of a rhythm along there. That's important to remember too, I think.
Absolutely. And the other thing I like is if you have just one type of thing, it's okay to do it that way too.
Yeah.
If we wanted
I've
to-
seen that with like tips of magnolia leaves where you do a magnolia
Sure.
garland. That's really gorgeous in the holidays.
Oh yeah, and magnolia dries so
Yeah,
beautifully.
it does. You don't have to worry about it wilting, do you? It just
No.
dries. Great ideas as usual, Jay. Thank you for sharing your creativity with us. So whether you're creating a space where you can do some productive gardening in, or just a patio for relaxation, or maybe a space for an outdoor sophisticated dinner with friends, the main thing to remember in creating these spaces is to just express your own personal style. You know, it's really all about you. If it makes you happy, then it's not wrong. It's right where it needs to be. Until next time, I'm Alan Smith.